Alrighty, we are live on the gauge,
Yay!
episode 17.
Episode 17. We missed you guys. It has been, it feels like it's been a very long time. I hope everyone enjoyed wrapping up their summer projects and hustling as much as we did. I'm also really wondering how it's already September. Tomorrow will basically be Christmas. Eve 3 on the gauge.
Yeah, it's yeah, we've been busy, and we haven't had a chance to do that many episodes the last couple of weeks, but yeah, we are back at it today.
Back at it today. And before we get started, just want to mention, so I don't forget, that in news and events, that Homegauge is attending the ASHI New England show September 18th and 19th. So be sure to stop by the booth and say hello. As you guys can see, it is not just me and Dan today. We have a very special guest to honor our return to the gauge at the end of summer. And we want to welcome Kathleen from Fixle. Kathleen, thanks so much for joining us. For those of you who don't know Kathleen, she is basically famous in the home inspection industry. And we're so pleased to have her with us here today. So, Kathleen, tell us everything about yourself in less than 100 words.
No, I think the most relevant is that I started in the home inspection industry several years after college, and that was a really long time ago. Started my own home inspection business, and eventually my father had started a company called Housemaster. So we're the first company, the franchise in the space. I started a Housemaster franchise again, a couple of years out of college, and eventually became the CEO of Housemaster and ran Housemaster for 20 years. So lots of experience there throughout the US and Canada.
You know a little bit about home inspections.
A little bit.
Well, the reason that we have Kathleen here today is because we want to learn more about Fixle. And Fixle is a new app that is what we believe is really going to revolutionize reporting and the value that inspectors can add to their inspections that will be appealing not only for home buyers, but also real estate agents. And it can really be a solid marketing tool to add values to your inspections. We only have a short time here today, so I want to go ahead and talk about Fixle. We did have a question come in because what we've heard from people who, we've talked about Fixle a little bit already, and that's why we thought we'd bring Kathleen in. But the common question that we've heard is, how is Fixle different from Recall Check? So it seems like that's a good kind of kickoff to us grilling you about Fixle, Kathleen.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably like the number one question that we get.
The number one question: what makes Fixle different from Recall Check?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's our number one question too. So, and just to touch base, I joined Fixle specifically because of what you said, Carla, in that, it's always been a frustration of mine that inspectors go out and collect all this data on a house, and then it gets locked in a PDF report, never to be used again. When frankly, the bigger challenge of home ownership is not really buying the home, it's maintaining the home.
Right.
So, that's what attracted me to join Fixle, to start to change that paradigm, if you will. But yes, common question: what makes Fixle different than Recall Check? First of all, the big one is it's more than recalls. So in addition to recalls, Fixle it pulls important appliance documents or resources such as manufacturer specifications, owner manuals, energy guides, warranty information, in addition to identifying the recall status. So it really gives the consumer information that they can use. It's actionable when they have a service problem, they're replacing their appliance, again, ongoing throughout their journey in home ownership. Also, the recall information is instant. So unlike Recall Check, when you put the information off, then it goes mysteriously somewhere and eventually a report is generated, which can be problematic when you're in a real estate transaction. So the information, once the inspector puts the information on the appliance into Fixle, the recall status is instant.
Oh, wow.
Another big piece is consumer privacy. So we're not gathering the information from Fixle to go use it to sell something else or contact the customer and text them and try and sell them utilities. That it stops with Fixle. So the consumer information, the data is private. The other big things, I think, is the fact that the consumer gets not only a report, so not only an appliance report, we call it the Fixle Home Report, which documents all the details of the appliances, the recall status, as well as live links to those important documents I just mentioned. But the consumer also has the ability to download the Fixle app. So all that information is in their hand. They can add additional appliances to the app. They can change appliances. They get ongoing recall monitoring, which is another big difference because with recall check, once the consumer, matter of fact, people who have moved are still getting their recall reports because there's no way to change the information. So once the consumer changes appliance or even leaves the home, they're still getting their recall report, which doesn't make sense and really doesn't look very credible. In addition, inspectors have many different ways to be able to utilize Fixle. So they can scan the appliance data plate and add the appliance information that way. They can take a picture and upload the appliance data plate, or they can put the information in manually. So they've got three choices, whatever is best for their workflow, whatever streamlines things the best. If they're using recall check and they don't mind putting in the manual entry, they can do that. If they're in a low light situation, they don't get a good shot of the data plate, maybe they have to do the manual entry, but there's a lot of different choices. And then lastly is kind of what's coming soon. So in addition to major appliances, we're adding the next big category is electrical panels. And then
that's a big one.
It is a big one. There's a lot of recalls. And of course, again, recalls are really all about safety. Safety, I mean, that's the number one thing you're looking for. So electrical panels are big along those lines. And then lastly is our back end Fixle. So we're rolling out in the next 60 days Fixle Folio, which would give the inspector the ability to resend the reports, to edit their reports. They've got a full end, add items if they want to, add additional appliances. So complete control over what they're delivering to the client.
That's really cool. So essentially, since the homeowner so the homeowner downloads the app and then they have information that I am assuming is populated from the inspection report. So, which is probably just another good question. So when the inspector uses this, do they have to retype all of the inspection details like into Fixle, or how does that work?
That's another good question, Carla. Clearly, this is not your first rodeo. So, right now there are no integrations with ISN or homegauge, but the inspector still doesn't have to retype the information, because when the inspector pulls up the Fixle app, they just hit use my location, and 98% of the time we're going to find the address, we're going to populate a picture of the home, and they're ready to go.
Oh, that's cool. So with the homeowner having it, then it basically becomes like almost a homeowner's like maintenance guide for their home.
It is. What they can do is they can add service professionals. They can add service details. If they have to make a service call, instead of just saying, "Hey, I've got a problem with my water heater," now this is a problem I have. This is a model I have, and it really streamlines the ability for them to get repairs done or just maintain their appliances. I mean, appliances today, are a large investment. So anything that you can do to extend the life of an appliance by knowing what you need to do is very cost effective for the consumer.
I was just thinking about all of my appliances that I have in my house. I just have a box that's in my closet with all of the owner's manuals, and they're just stacked up in a closet to be forgotten about. And I just recently had a problem on my new microwave that I have, and I was like, man, I hope that owner's manual is in there somewhere. Like, so like being able to have all of that information already programmed into an app like that, I can be able to just pull that information up for the microwave, but even, so I don't have to go digging in my closet for that information.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, we had an inspector who was just thrilled because the real estate agent was in the kitchen opening all the cabinets, and the inspector said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I'm looking for the appliance manuals. I really like to try and find the appliance manuals so that my buyer has them." And the inspector was able to say, "I got you covered. We're using Fixle. Your consumer is going to get this." And the agent was like, "Okay, that's it. That's a game changer. Love it."
That's awesome. Yeah, that is key. That's great.
Yeah, true story. I actually just remodeled my kitchen, actually most of our house, and at the last minute, the contractor, we were actually reusing 2 appliances, and at the last minute, the contractor said, "I need the specifications of your appliances right now. I need the dimensions. I needed all that information."
Really?
I was several states away, so I said, "I've got Fixle. That's not a problem." I was able to pull them down and email them out and get it resolved immediately.
That's awesome.
Well, I'd say you both are way better than I am. I don't know that I have a box with my manuals, and I don't have Fixle. And it's just kind of, if something happens, I'm like, surely that is somewhere in this house. So, yeah. And, it's one of those things with appliances, like you don't think about them, you take them for granted. Like you take like having electricity or water, right? And it's not until something goes wrong that you're like, oh God, I know I should have saved that. And chances are it was 5 years ago, or, something like that. So I think it has, I think it's certainly valuable. And it sounds like a really, really cool app. So curious how much something like this costs. Like, does it cost anything for the inspector to use it, or the home buyer? Like, how does that work with Fixle? Because it sounds like a handy little gift. So what's the catch?
It is. Well, it's not a catch. It's an investment, the way I like to look at it. And, I think to your point, Carla, for a consumer buying a new home, they don't even know how to operate their appliances. So it's all new. So the timing of them getting this information, because they're buying a new home, because they're going to be responsible for those appliances when they move in, is really a natural. As I said, they don't even know how to operate the items. In terms of price, though, the Fixle starts at, and it's all based on per property. So, and it's how many properties per month. So it starts at $9.95 per property, up to 25 properties a month. And then it starts to drop down, and it goes as low as $2.95 a report or a property for high volume home inspection companies. But there's no subscription fees, which is nice. So if you do 5 houses a month, you pay for 5 houses. If you add those 5 houses to Fixle, you've got complete control over what you're using, what you're spending. So, and there is 30 days free. So everybody can download Fixle, add their information, set their company up, put their logo in there, play with it for 30 days, unlimited properties. And then after that, it's complete control at $9.95 a property or less as they use Fixle.
So, okay, so I'm curious. So you get the free 30-day trial, and then you were saying that you can choose to offer it with a property or not. So for instance, if there is a property, that someone is doing like pre-renovation, maybe there aren't any appliances, or they need to install any, obviously you don't need Fixle for that, because so you're signed up, but you still use it as you see fit per inspection.
Exactly. So maybe you're offering different levels of service in your inspection company. So you've got a basic offering that doesn't include Fixle. You've got a premium offering. It does include Fixle. Obviously, you're charging more for that. Or it's just time to raise your fees. And Fixle is a fabulous way to justify a fee increase because it's a significant additional value.
Well, and to set you apart from your competitors, this is, since it's a relatively new app, you're a fairly new app rolling out, right?
We are.
Right. So this is kind of a good time. And that's why we wanted, to have you on the show to talk about it, because we're heading, into the season. Dan and I have been not in home inspection industry as long as you have, Kathleen, but we've been in it for quite a bit. And we know that we're heading kind of on the downside of things, and working primarily in the web services team. This is when we're hearing from inspectors, because they're not booking as many inspections, and they're looking at their website and they're trying to figure out what they can do to add value to their services. And we recently wrote an article for Working RE magazine about, things that they can do to add value to their inspections, because people, are fairly hesitant to raise prices just to raise prices. And it's like, well, but are you, looking at different ways that you can make money? Because everyone, I think people tend to see home inspections as simply a buyer's market, right? That if houses aren't selling, it's like, well, do you offer home maintenance inspections? Do you offer ancillary services and bundle that? Like January, National Radon Action Month, is a great time to run a special on radon testing. So we spend basically, October through January or February talking to all the inspectors that, now that they've come out of the busy season of inspecting, like they're coming to us, like how, looking for advice on marketing and what they can do, and what we're seeing other people do. And since we have, a couple thousand inspectors with websites with homegauge, like we hear some really cool ideas. So we're always looking and encouraging them to spend this time to find stuff like this. How can you set yourself apart from your competitors, and how can you, and this is a great time to make connections with realtors and go to an agency that uses you and say, hey, look at this cool new app, and have different levels of service for your inspection. So like you said, there's a basic inspection. Maybe there's, an enhanced premium inspection, and maybe you roll, a radon test into that, or different, indoor air quality, or all of that. So there's lots of different things that they can do. And I think Fixle really is like, this is a good time to kind of be educating people about it, because it is something that, do you want to set yourself apart from the competition? And this is a good way to do it. So that said, and I don't know, I'm just like rolling myself into these other questions, but do you guys offer any type of marketing materials or support for inspectors? Say that they do download the app and they're like, this is great, I want to use it. Do you offer any type of support on your end for like with any materials that can kind of help them get going if they want to talk about it on their website or to showcase it to realtors?
Yes, and I completely agree. This is the time. I've been in the industry for decades, so been through a lot of real estate downturns. This is a doozy. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of perfect storm elements to this one. And if you're on the inspector forums, you're seeing inspectors say, I'm selling my equipment, right? You've got, the part-time inspectors that may have been thinking about retiring. This is kind of pushing them out of the market. So you really have to look at this time now as an opportunity, because some of those agents that have relationships with some inspectors need a new inspector. And we always trained historically and did very, very well as using a time like this as the opportunity, to your point, Carla. So yes, we have marketing materials. We've got postcards for realtors. So either leave behind or on an inspection, we've got postcards for consumers. So we can help explain the value of Fixle right there and then. It can be distributed on the inspection. We've got an office talk for agents. We've got script for selling Fixle over the phone. And coming soon, within weeks actually, before we get to the Internachi show in October, we'll have an ISN template to promote Fixle as well as social media posts.
Awesome.
No, that's awesome. That's really good. Nice. And speaking of that, you can follow Fixle on Instagram at Fixle Home.
Oh, your little caption.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, they used to like really, I would get really excited, and I've gotten used to seeing them now, Dan. But so like,
Does Fixle, do you guys like put out like any kind of like articles or blogs that people can read about more?
We do. If you go to Fixle Home, actually fixlehome.com/support, you're going to see lots of articles about how to use Fixle, common questions. Even if you've subscribed, but now we had a big new release, so you've got to actually create a new account. We apologize for that, but it's because we've rolled out so many new elements, so all that is at fixlehome.com/support. And you'll find, a lot of information. Of course, anybody could always email me, Fixle or Kathleen at fixlehome.com. I'm happy to engage as well. So yeah, lots of information. We're constantly putting out information, and we're also emailing out to those who have signed up for information as well.
Cool. Well, I think that this sounds like such a great opportunity. So I know you mentioned Internachi, so I'm assuming you're going to have a booth at that show.
We will. Well, be
Dan will be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not dressing up as Elvis this time. I dressed up as Elvis.
Well, that was for Ashy.
For the Ashy show in Vegas. I dressed up as Elvis, but I don't know. I might pull something out of my sleeve. We'll see.
Well, isn't the Nachi show? Isn't it in a casino-y place too?
Well, it is the Glen City, which is
a
place. So it's I think it's at the Tropicana.
Okay. So I don't know, Dan. I mean, it sounds like like you need to start thinking about what you're going to do.
We'll see.
I think there's a lot of options there.
I'm thinking there are too. So yeah, that should be a real good show. And yeah, again, this is like I think is such a neat tool, and that's why we wanted to have you on to talk about it. And for those of you who don't know or aren't registered yet, you probably should register if you're watching to go to the Internachi show in October. I think it's the 13th, 14th, something like that. I think it's like the second week in October. But definitely, if you go, swing by the booth. Dan will be either himself or he might dress up as something. If we can find something fun to recommend that we can get him to agree to, then he might be dressed as something. And Kathleen will be there too from Fixle, and I'm sure that you can talk to people more about it then as well. I believe, let's see, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? I was trying to think of, what questions people would ask, and it kicked off with that first one about how it's different from recall check, which makes sense. And, I think the important thing, I just want to kind of go back to that. One of the things you said about customer privacy and that their data isn't being shared. And I know that is really important to, to this industry and to our customers as well. And that's a difference, along with some other things that you mentioned as well. But I was highlighted in my brain. Yeah,
important industry. So I think one of the questions I get often is our database. So Fixle really has one of the most robust databases of appliance data. But in the event that the inspector adds an appliance and the data isn't there, then we go source it. So we go source it, and within 48 to 72 hours, we will get that information and populate it. So we're always building our database organically, but we're also always building our database with appliances that are found on home. So there's never really a time where, you're not going to find something, but if it's not immediately in the database, and usually we cover about 80% of the time or more it is, but if it's not, then we're going to go find that information. So there's always that update. And the last question I get a lot is on manufactured date. So Fixle does pull the manufactured date So when we can pull that off the data plate, or we can decode it using the manufacturer's system, we will pull up the manufacturer date, and it's personal preference. I have discussions with inspectors all the time. Some inspectors find the manufacturer date for every appliance in the home. Some do it just for hot water and heating systems. Regardless, we can streamline that process. Sometimes when Fixle is going to populate a manufacturer date, it'll come up with a couple different decades. So you'll see, 2010, 2020, and that's because that the manufacturer reused the model number. So then the inspector just obviously knows that it's not a 30-year-old system, it's a 3-year-old system, and chooses the 2020. So those are two common questions that we also get for users of Fixle.
Okay. Awesome.
Nice. Awesome. Well, let me check and see if there's any questions. If anyone watching right now has any quick questions for us, we can answer it now. Leave those questions in the comments. Otherwise, if there's any kind of questions after this live episode, we will definitely get those answered as well.
Yeah. So if someone is watching this not live, but recorded on one of our channels, then feel free to send any questions to ask@homegauge.com, or Kathleen said you could actually send them to her directly too. And she's Kathleen at fixlehome.com. So I'm not seeing any messages at the moment. Are you, Dan?
I'm not at the moment. I'm not. No.
Okay. Well, again, this will live. Do you want to talk about where this video is going to live?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So the full episodes are going to be on the Gauge playlist that is on the homegauge YouTube channel. And we are now also on Spotify. So this, maybe not today, but maybe next couple of days, this full audio episode will be on Spotify. And then again, the full episodes will also be on our YouTube channel.
Yes. So if you can't watch us, you can listen to us.
Yes.
Vehicle in between inspections. So yeah. All right. Well, I think that it came in right at around 30 minutes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. So, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us. And I think this is great information. And we certainly, welcome you back anytime. And I think that this is a really great opportunity for inspectors to really add some value for their inspections, and to get, realtors interested. I'm sure that they love it. And I know as a homeowner, I would love this. So I might download the free Fixle for myself and then just enter all of my stuff. And
I'm going to hold you to that, Carla.
I think I'm going to go do that, Kathleen.
Yeah. And then I don't have to search for all my user manuals in my closet. That's probably buried in underneath all of my coats and shoes.
I mean, at least yours are in your house somewhere.
Yeah, they're in there somewhere. But having them all in Fixle would be great.
I know. And that's the thing. I think that part of this too, is embracing technology, and the fact that customers and clients are going to expect something like this, right? The inspection report is absolutely great to have, but man, I know you offer someone an app that's going to be basically a library, a resource library for the systems of their home. And I don't know anyone who's going to say no, thank you, right? They're going to want that. So
it's a good way to impress your clients. That is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again for being here. Send any show ideas or questions from this episode to ask@homegauge.com. You can also send us a message if you want to be our next guest. And we'll see if we want to invite you. Just kidding. Anyone who wants to come on, we're pretty open. To stay tuned for other news and updates on our social media channels, including Susie's famous Lunch and Learns and other webinars as they come up. So if you're not following us on Instagram, please do. You can find us on, oh, I love it when you just, right when
Boom.
it's,
There it is.
that's so beautiful.
There's our main Instagram account.
Follow us on Instagram at homegauge. And you can also find us on Facebook. Oh, I was waiting for it.
You can find us. You can find homegauge on Facebook. We got two
YouTube.
Instagram accounts. Homegauge on Twitter.
On Twitter. And
Homegauge on Twitter, which is now called X.
well, it's Twitter.
It's still Twitter.
We're just gonna
homegauge on YouTube. Our YouTube has a lot of content.
so much content.
Susie's been putting out a lot of great videos. Definitely highly recommend checking out homegauge on YouTube. Yeah. Oh, and we're on TikTok. Don't forget about that. Homegauge on TikTok.
I said TikTok. Homegauge is on TikTok.
Alrighty. I think we're good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this episode.
Yep. Thanks so
Thanks
much
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.